So we're going to start talking, which I've already begun, talking about change.org. Then we're going to talk about why online petitions. We're going to talk about some of the petition examples that we're seeing win and draw out some lessons from that. We'll quickly go through how you can start your own petition. We're going to take a poll along the way about who's already started one. We'll talk briefly about sponsored campaigns, and then we're going to try and leave lots of time at the end for questions. As we said, you can ask them along the way, but we will also have time to have that discussion at the end. Is there anything else you want to add to that, Lawrence?
Nope, that's great. Just wanted to remind people to enter your questions into the chat window, and we'll have plenty of time for that at the end.
Yep. Lawrence, can you just post the dial-in details into the chat window? There's a couple of people who can't hear.
Yep.
They need to dial in.
On that.
Great. So I'll just keep going. So as I said, it's a platform that's being used around the world where people can start petitions, run campaigns, and win all sorts of different things that they care about. We've got a team that's based in Melbourne who does support work across Australia and New Zealand. So we've got Nick Allardyce, who is the country director, and he'll be doing a lot of the work on the sponsored campaigns. We've got Tony Robertson, who will be speaking later on, who is the communications director. We've got Nathan Alvery and Bobby Murphy, who are two of our campaigners. And in Sydney, we've got Rebecca Wilson, who does a lot of our global development work. People are phoning in now. So I just wanted to, one of the key questions we get asked is how do we make our money? And so I wanted to put the slide right up front because we have quite a unique business model. So what you can see from this is Molly Catchpole in the middle. So Molly is someone who started a petition against Bank of American fees in the US. And what you can see around her is the hundreds of thousands of people who she got to join her campaign. And the unique thing with change is what we're then able to do is connect those hundreds of thousands of people that we know care about issues with organisations that are working on those issues. And we do that through allowing organisations to sponsor petitions. Then people sign those petitions and then they can transition to become engaged in those different organisations. Is there anything you want to add to that, Lawrence?
Only to say that we're incredibly excited about this model, and it's a model that provides a lot of value for organizations around the world. And we're just really honored to be able to help organizations do their work more efficiently by providing them access to really highly targeted, very engaged new supporters. So Change.org is really empowering individuals to make change by providing an amazing petition tool, and at the same time providing that tool to organizations, but also giving them access to really the world's fastest growing online action platform. And Change.org really has come to be over the last couple of years with the advent of the Internet and how the Internet has changed advocacy work. And wanted to talk a little bit about what Change.org really is. And then Change.org is an update on one of the tried and true advocacy tools that nonprofits have been using and NGOs and charities have been using for ages, and that's the handwritten petition. And now with the Internet, organizations are able to connect with users in a much more targeted way and in the places that they're spending a lot of their time now. And that's online, that's on Facebook, that's in other social media channels, and that's through email. And the petition, like some other digital tactics that are now available, whether it's websites or social media actions through Facebook or email campaigns, it really allows us to integrate online campaigning with traditional tactics. And what that is, why that's good for organizations is that it takes a lot of different methods to make change as far as moving the goalposts and pushing forward on these bigger issues that we have. So we'll be talking a lot about, during this presentation, the different ways that online petitions can be integrated to the work that you're already doing and can really add an incredible value and efficiently with as far as staff time and cost for the work that you're already doing. And as we have launched this petition tool and seen a lot of amazing campaigns run by individuals and by organizations, we've also seen a lot of traffic to our website and a lot of attention across the world. So I want to give you a little background about where we're at change.org. Looks like the formatting of the slide got a little thrown off, but I apologize there. But right now, in the middle of 2012, we're seeing over 10 million active users each month on our website in over 150 different countries. And organizations like yours have seen that this is where individuals are coming to be involved with social issues, to express their concerns and voice their support for causes that they care about. And likewise, organizations have been following suit and creating profiles on our site to the tune of 17,000 organizations that have joined change.org and gathered over 25 million signatures, which is really exciting. And that's a huge collective impact that we've seen by organizations alone on change.org. And we're excited to be here with you today because as the internet has spread around the world and empowered communities all over the planet, so is change.org. And we're very honored to be in Australia and New Zealand, to have a working site that's localized to campaigns and organizations that are in Australia and in New Zealand. And Karen's going to tell us a little bit about what we're seeing as far as membership numbers in that part of the world.
Yeah, so we're seeing a huge number of people daily coming to change.org to sign petitions on a huge range of issues. So we're getting a couple of thousand coming every single day to sign up and sign petitions, which is hugely exciting. And it also means that more and more people are also able to engage on a range of different campaigns. So we're seeing an increase in the number of people who are signing more than one petition as well.
Yeah, and we're one of the reasons why we're having you all on board today is to let you know that change.org is quickly becoming one of the go-to places for social action in the Pacific and for Australia and New Zealand, and we want to let you know how to connect with those users that are in your backyard.
And what we're seeing with organisations across Australia and New Zealand as well is that they're using online petitions on change really strategically in an overall kind of campaign strategy. I know there's always a lot of debate about can a petition alone win. Often it does, but also as part of an overall strategy it can be incredibly powerful.
Yeah, and that's a great segue into our first takeaway, just a moment to reflect on some of the major points we want you to walk away with. That in this case, online petitions are complementing the traditional advocacy tactics and fundraising strategies of organizations around the world. So we really feel that online petitions are an important tool in the toolkit of any organization doing advocacy out there today.
Yeah, and what we're seeing is that people can reach people really fast using online petitions. They can create a wider concept of what community is, and they're able to, as we'll talk about, escalate people's involvement, start with a petition and move on from there.
Right. And so that's another great segue into a little bit about why online petitions. I think that there's a lot of hype about online petitions, and as Karen mentioned, there's some concern that petitions actually don't make a real impact. And so I want to run through some of the immediate benefits that organizations are seeing by adopting the petition tactic. And this first slide here is something called the ladder of engagement. And I'm sure some of you folks out there know about this philosophy and this strategy. The ladder of engagement really is a simple scale for ranking the different activities that we offer our supporters to engage with our organization. And the idea is that over time, we want to be cultivating new supporters by engaging them with relatively simple actions, low barrier, low threshold actions, and over time, working them up the ladder to more involved asks and engagement with our organization. And that could be anything from going from signing a petition or clicking a post on Facebook to donating at the end of the year or coming out to an in-person rally. And we feel that online petitions are a great first rung in the ladder of engagement. And that's one of the benefits that we really feel is very important, is a great way to engage new supporters, finding a way to attract new people to your work and to your campaigns that you might not otherwise reach, and identify folks that are interested in your cause and the work you're doing every day. So the benefit there is just being able to connect with folks that you might not ordinarily have connected with. And one of the other ways that we often connect with people in the advocacy world is by doing media outreach and having our story talked about in the papers and the press. And we've seen that online petitions are a really great avenue to generate press and media by virtue of their unique place in this cultural moment for individuals expressing their outrage about an issue or an injustice. And to tell us a bit about that is the media director, or communications director for the Australia team, Tony Robertson. And Tony, are you there? Would you want to share some of the awesome stuff that you've seen as far as press around online petitions?
Yeah, g'day Lawrence, I am here. Hi everyone. I started with change.org in November last year, and probably like a lot of you went through that daily grind of trying to pitch stories to media outlets, not always with great success. 8 months later, we're at the situation where we literally get major media organisations ringing us, asking what good campaigns we've got on the go at the moment. They are really engaged with the idea of change.org, and there's 2 reasons for that. The first is that we have just lots of great issues on our website, so it's like a bank of stories that they can tap into. And the second is that, so often we are telling compelling personal stories. Individuals taking on the system or trying to create change. So, as I said, we're getting great engagement from the media. The slide that we've got posted here is, I guess, the classic example of a media perfect storm. This was the Kyle Sandilands case, known as Vile Kyle. The 3 elements that made this a really compelling media campaign were lots of numbers on the petition and showing that there was growth on the petition. The second aspect was that there was a really strong social media element of it. So news of the petition was spread widely on social media. And the third part was that fed back into traditional media coverage. And it becomes almost like a virtuous circle where those 3 elements feed back into each other. I'm happy to chat further about the media side of it, but I thought I'd just give you that very brief overview of what we're doing.
Thanks, Tony. And, here at Stateside, we are just amazed at how much attention that Sandilands petition grabbed in the media in Australia, and we're just blown away, and just really demonstrated that there is an opportunity to penetrate some of the white noise and grab some attention for advocacy work and cause work in media environment and in Australia. And one other note is that in the journalists that we talk to in the United States, we've had more than one top-tier journalist tell us that they regularly come to change.org looking to see what's happening, what petitions are hot, what people are interested in and concerned about. So the idea that an online petition can also help with your press outreach is kind of exciting and interesting, and I think new as well. The last benefit I wanted to talk about before we move on to some examples is the pressure that an online petition can bring to bear on the decision makers who you are targeting to help you make your change. And this is a slide of a petition delivery to Apple. This was a coordinated petition delivery across the world asking Apple to be more ethical in how it treats its workers. And in addition to this petition delivery, every time that someone signs a petition on change.org, if you've listed the email contact information for your targeted decision maker, that decision maker will receive an email on behalf of the petition signer. So that becomes a really incredible point of pressure on decision makers, and we've seen even just a couple hundred signatures and a few hundred emails really start to crack the otherwise steely exterior of decision makers, especially in smaller local campaigns. And I see Ben has a question about the effectiveness on of email petitions and email campaigns. I'll get to that in a minute, but just wanted to wrap up this section of the webinar to say that online petitions, again, what we just covered, they combine a number of different tactics simultaneously and effectively, engaging supporters, generating media, and also pressuring decision makers. So with that, I would love to throw out a poll and ask if anyone out there on the webinar today has ever created an online petition. That helps us, it'll help us shape the end of the webinar and how much detail we go into on some of the points. And while we're doing that, maybe we can turn our attention to Ben and his question. Karen, did you have any thoughts on Ben's question about research, about how much political targets value petition or email campaigns?
Yeah, I think there's a few points to note about that. I mean, I think it's like any advocacy tactic. It depends how you use it. And when you use it strategically, we're seeing that it has huge impact. And it's about whether it's also part of a ladder of engagement. So what does it say to the target? If it says to the target, there's just a few people that have signed a petition and they're going to go away, then they probably won't. But if what it says is there's thousands of people who are signing and sharing, it's spreading, it's growing, and these people are going to be asked to engage further, and it's just going to keep going. It's then ending up in the media, and this is going to become really difficult for you. Then it said very early on when they first start getting change.org petitions coming through, they know what that means. They know where this is likely to go, and therefore they're more likely to respond. But again, it depends on how you make it sure it fits within the strategy.
Yeah, and the only other thing I would add there is that the targeting that you do on your petition, which we're going to talk about later on, is really important. You want to make sure that you're targeting individuals that are actually susceptible to pressure and can make the change that you're looking to make. Targeting someone that's at the highest levels of government, the emails may fall on deaf ears. So that's a really important part. Let's take one more question from Reese before we move on to some examples. Reese asks about case studies showing growth along the ladder of engagement. Are there any specific strategies for each stage? We have a really great client services team here that helps our clients onboard new supporters into their email list and to make sure that over the long term we develop those supporters, or our clients develop new supporters for the longest term ROI or return on investment. So we definitely can. There's been a lot of talk or a lot of discussion about what those different stages are. I don't have a study off the top of my head that I could offer, but we could certainly follow up with you. Unless, Karen, you have anything that you can think about right now as far as research about the ladder of engagement.
I mean, we have a huge amount of experience with the ladder of engagement, and that's what we're working on a lot. So maybe we should just keep moving through the rest of the slides, and in the Q&A I can give a quick example of some of the ways that we escalate people through some campaigns. And then if people want more, I'm happy to talk about those as well.
Great.
And again, it's like how you would plan an offline campaign. If it's very similar to online. What are some steps along the way that we can get people to do, and how do we track people's engagement? So how do we make sure in each step that people are actually coming with us? But I'll talk about that at the end if that's all right.
Okay, great. And just to let folks know, maybe about a little less than 2/3 of the folks on the call have created online petitions, just so you know. And I'm going to pass it over to Karen right now to talk about great examples of petitions that have been run in Australia and New Zealand.
Yeah, so we're obviously building up our experience working with lots of different organisations and individuals and seeing lots of petitions come through on the site and win. and we, it's lots of people ask, what is it that makes it work? And what we're finding is that there's a few things. So one is making it kind of dramatic. That's what's really kind of engaging for people. When you've only got a couple of seconds to really catch people's attention with something, it needs to be kind of dramatic, both in the actual petition text, but also in any email that you might send to get people's attention. It needs to be inspiring, it needs to be relevant, and it needs to be timely. So petitions work really well when there's a moment in time that you can jump on, that people realise that they can't wait for a week to sign this petition, they need to sign it today because it's related to something that's happening. Really relevant to them, that's where people see that it relates to them, or where there's a personal story that they can connect with. And that's part of inspiring as well. The petitions that are working the most is when there's a story told about an individual kind of taking on a big establishment or some kind of power structure, and people really want to back that individual and get inspired by this person being willing to stand up for something that they want to see changed. So we talk about the dirty petitions. Lawrence, do you want to add anything, or I'll move on to some of the examples?
No, that was great. Go for it.
So there's different ways that organisations are strategically using petitions. I'm just going to show you 3 quick examples so you can see the different ways that people are including them in their campaign. So this one is one of the largest that we've had run by an organisation here. This was started by the Australian Nursing Federation in Victoria. And what this shows is where a petition can be used very effectively alongside a large industrial campaign. So this union was running TV ads, they had nurses taking a lot of action, and what this petition did is, as nurses are taking action, as all this community engagement, the Premier's inbox is being jam-filled with 29,000 people that are backing up those nurses. And what the nurses are able to do is really clearly show that community support is building. So as time goes on, more and more people are saying, yep, I stand with those nurses. I'm just checking out the question, I'll take that later.
Yeah,
so that's just one example where they're using a petition alongside a whole other campaign.
And one quick note about this petition, Karen, is that you can see that they have a video embedded on the petition that is one of the ads they've been running. So another example of integrating a petition with existing collateral or other materials you developed for a campaign. And a video can be a really compelling way to engage new supporters through a petition.
Yeah, and from a union sense, it's a good way where workers are very involved for them to be able to say to their friends and family, especially through sharing on Facebook, hey, I'm taking this action, can you support me by signing this petition? So it's a good way to widen the community that you're engaging with. So the next one, this is actually another union-related campaign. So a group of workers in a chicken factory were suffering quite severe bullying, and they were trying to take on their direct employer. And what we're seeing here is a petition being used for a secondary target. So Coles wasn't the employer, but Coles was the company that was obviously selling the chickens. And so there is a consumer of Coles has started a petition to say to Coles that they should be held accountable for how these workers are treated in the chicken factory. It both engages more people than just the workers, because obviously a lot of us are consumers at Coles, so it's about widening the community by looking for a different target as well, and this was a hugely successful campaign. It's also a way to have a different media angle and to pull in a different target in a campaign, and Coles is obviously a much more publicly known brand, and we find the more you can try and find a publicly known brand like this, the more vulnerable that they are to this kind of customer pressure. Just checking if there's any questions before I move on to the next one. So this is a different one as well. This is an active one at the moment. You'll see it on the front page of the site. So this is one where an organisation would like to be able to extend their services to provide them 24 hours to people who suffer from eating disorders. But what we're seeing is that this petition is started by an individual who has a very strong personal story. So it was someone who has suffered from anorexia for a long time and has been able to come through it. So this is really powerful in terms of the petition story. It's really powerful in terms of emails out, and it's really powerful in terms of media as well. June's done a whole lot of media talking about her experience and therefore why it is that it's important to have this line. And we're finding lots of organisations, even in an organisational campaign, that having individuals speak out on the issues is really, really important. And the other ways that we use individual stories quite a lot in petitions is sometimes organisations are choosing one individual's case and trying to win that, and through that highlighting an overall problem. So for example, we've been talking with a whole lot of disability groups about some individuals who are not getting what they need, and we might try and run some individual campaigns, but through that we would highlight the overall problem. So what we're seeing is a huge range of ways that people are using change.org. And so what we're seeing is that people basically are creating moments on change.org. So they're getting a petition in a moment in time. And what we're trying to work with organisations on to use change.org is to really create movements. And that's the real kind of power of the way that organisations are using this. Just ask Lawrence or Tony if they've got anything else they want to add on any of those three. Yes, they won against Coles, Lindsay.
Amazing petitions, really super exciting for us, especially here in the United States, seeing organizations and individuals adopt this tool set to do their work in places like Australia. Just really inspiring for us. I mean, one of the greatest things about being at change.org is seeing these petitions started every day. So thanks for sharing those, Karen. And there's some questions coming up about that are a bit more technical in nature. And what I'd like to do is we're coming up to the last section here about starting petitions. And I want to just run through some best practices for starting petitions on change.org and just generally. And if I can, I'll hit on some of those questions in the process. And if not, we'll have plenty of time after I work through that. So if that sounds good to you, Karen, I will get started.
Yes.
Cool. So the first thing to mention is that on change.org, as we've been talking about, you can create petitions as an individual or an organization. And what we're looking at right now is an example organization profile I've created for a non-existent group. When you create to create a petition as an organization, you have to create a profile first. And so I've highlighted the link in the bottom of our footer right here in yellow, and that's the process. If you don't already have a profile for your organization on change.org, do that, and then you'll be able to create petitions in your organization's name. And that has some benefits for the petition, for the people that have opted in to communicating with your organization. There are some benefits for organizations that we don't extend to individuals. So that's the first step. And then the second step is clicking the Start a Petition button in the header of our website and answering the 3 questions that you see here. One quick note is that you can elect to start a petition as an individual or an organization, and that's what this drop-down list is here. But the most important part of your campaign and your petition, as we've been talking about, is answering these 3 questions correctly. Well, not correctly, but putting some thought into these 3 questions strategically. And the questions are, who do you want to petition, what do you want them to do, and why is this important? So let's start with number 2 real quick, because that is really the goal of your petition. And as we talked about before, you want to be choosing an action that's that's timely, that's inspiring for people, that's relevant, but it's also achievable. And this is a really important point to note for petitions, especially when you think about the impact a petition can have. A petition may not end world hunger, but it might help save funding for a food bank in a local community. So think about a goal for your petition that's very specific and achievable. And then once you have that, you can take a step back to question number one and ask who can help you make that change. Ask yourself what specific individual would be able to make a change to achieve that goal that you identified in number two. And those are the strategic elements of planning your petition that will not only help to increase your petition's chances of succeeding, but also make sure that individuals are lending their voice in a way that has the most impact on the ground. Finally, number three, why is this important? That's your chance to tell the story. You probably are all great storytellers because you're communicating with individuals every day about your work. So take this moment to tell why this is important for individuals. Make a strong case, use any research or references or articles you have. And we have found that individuals want to see good reasoning and very solidly thought out petitions, and they're more likely to sign. People do pay attention to that kind of thing. And when you create a petition on change.org answering those three questions, this is what you'll see. But this looks a little different than some of the petitions we saw earlier. So talking about some quick best practices for optimizing your petition. And those are, as we've mentioned, entering the email address for your target, adding multiple targets if you have other folks that might be able to help make this change. And again, entering the email is important because every time someone signs a petition on change.org, an email is sent on their behalf if that email address is filled out. And then finally, as some of the other things that we noted earlier, using a great petition image, entering a title that's a bit more catchy or snappy as the default title that change.org creates for your petition. And then finally, writing a petition letter. This is the petition letter that your decision maker will receive when they receive the email from someone that signed your petition. So real quickly, those are the takeaways, or what we're calling our winning petition checklist. Choosing an achievable ask, doing specific targeting for your petition, telling a compelling story, and doing that by choosing a provocative image and an engaging title. So those are things to think about when you're creating your petitions, whether it's on change.org or elsewhere. And I did see a question from Andrew about creating petitions on their site versus the benefit of creating it on change.org instead. And I'm going to address some of those points. There's a couple answers that I can give to that, and I'll address that over the course of the next couple slides here. This next slide is the final petition. This is a petition I created for the demonstration organization, and you'll see there's a nice image there, et cetera, et cetera. But also, I wanted to point out the social media sharing button at the top of or bar at the top of the page. Share via email, share on Facebook, and share on Twitter. And one thing we spend a lot of time on at change.org is optimizing our petitions for sharing, but also in the social context, making them as easy to use so that we're evaluating what our share rates are over time and trying very hard to increase those share rates so that we know people, if they're interested in a cause, it's as easy as possible for them to let their friends know, whether that's via email or on other social networks like Facebook or Twitter. And I think that's an advantage to change.org versus some of the other petition tools that are out there. If you have a CRM that you use, like Convio or one of the other Blackbaud tools or Salsa Labs, there's petition tools there, but they're not as optimized for distribution as change.org is. And we're always working on making the best tools available. We have a world-class engineering team that is really working on some amazing stuff, and you're going to be seeing some big changes to our petition page in the coming months that we're really excited about. So that's an obvious advantage to using a change.org petition. And while we're on the topic of promotion, Karen, I wondered if you wanted to talk a little bit about some of the ways that organizations should be thinking about sharing their petitions if they're not already doing some of these promotional channels.
Absolutely. And just quickly on that question about the change tool, one of the main reasons that organisations seem to be coming to change at the moment in Australia, even where they have their own petition tool, is because so many people are coming to change. You are able to appeal to a much wider audience than may necessarily go to your organisation's website, and people can attach to an issue that you're campaigning on, whereas when they go to an organisational website, sometimes it's like they're kind of endorsing the organisation. So sometimes you might want to get people involved in a specific issue in a campaign, and through that transition them to be kind of part of your organisation. So they're almost being a little bit a neutral, so to speak, can sometimes help build petitions. So I think if most of you have started petitions, you'll already know this, but pushing your petition out as hard and as fast as you can to as many different ways as possible. So obviously a lot of people are on email, and email is still the most effective way. Facebook is great because it says, I've signed the petition and I want you to sign the petition. That's why we put so much energy into those tools being really accessible, and we often email out to signers after they've signed, a couple of days after they've signed, to say, this is building really well, can you share it? So that they've just got another reminder that we need them to share it and own their support for the campaign. You can put the widget on your website, so even if you've got your own website and you want traffic going through there, you can link easily to the petition. Other bloggers and allies can help distribute it as well. We talk to a lot of groups and get them mapping out who else might support this issue. And obviously including a link in press releases. We were able to get the petition link on press releases. Sometimes we can get it on online news sites, and we're beginning to see more and more signatures coming from that source. I'm just quickly having a look at the questions before we move on.
Yeah, there are some of the questions that I'd love to answer in the next section. I think I can talk to a few of those.
Quickly through this next stuff. Yeah. So you'll cover Lindsay's questions about the relative benefit of starting as an individual versus an organisation.
I'll leave that to you, but I want to answer some more of Andrew's questions. Yep. So let's just end sort of the petition best practices section by saying that we always recommend doing a petition delivery in person, and don't need to tell this to this group, but we just want to emphasize that for petitions to have the most impact in the real world, they need to exist in the context of the real world. So this is a petition delivery in Washington, D.C. a few months back related to greenhouse gas emissions and the like. So enough said on that. Andrew has a couple questions about, additionally, why you would use change.org and how we handle email lists and the like. So I want to talk a bit about one of the real excellent benefits that change.org offers organizations. I'm not too sure that this is the case on other petition websites. In fact, I don't believe it is. But for organizations that create petitions, we allow them to have access to the contact information, email and general location for individuals that opt in to communications with those organizations. So how that works is someone comes and they come to change.org and they sign your petition. They have the ability to check a box that says, I'd like to hear more from your organization. When that's done over the course of the petition lifetime, you'll say you get 100 signatures, maybe 10–15% of those folks will have opted into your petition. And those are folks that you can then download the information for and communicate with via email going forward and welcome into your email communication stream. Now, this is a relatively small number, but I think it's a huge benefit for folks that are always looking for ways to grow their list and to find and identify new supporters for the work they're doing. And for organizations that are new to email fundraising or advocacy work in the online petition and email advocacy space, this access to kind of get your feet wet a little bit with online petitions and list growth through online petitions is an amazing opportunity. And I don't believe that's something that Avaz or Community Run offer. And one other thing to mention related to Andrew's question is that we talked a little bit about the business model in the beginning of the presentation, but just to touch on that again, our core offering for organizations, our core paid offering is sponsored campaigns. And that is a promotional or advertising model that allows organizations to put their causes right in front of individuals that we've identified through our intelligent matching service to be most likely to be interested in your cause. Folks that you get through this acquisition source, you're able to have the full contact information for these individuals. That's email, physical address, and more than just the general location email that's available through our free petitions. And we offer this in a really kind of predictable cost per supporter pricing. So this is a service that we're just starting to roll out in Australia and New Zealand. We have a couple clients testing it out, and they're very excited about this new source of acquisition. And we make it really easy for organizations to work with us. And to Andrew's question, we have the ability to automatically deliver new supporters directly into the CRM that you're using. Whether it is one of the few I mentioned or another, we have a service called Relay that automatically delivers new supporter information without you having to do any Excel spreadsheet uploads or imports or anything like that. So it's a pretty streamlined system. We're really excited to be able to deliver not only a valuable service in this way, but also one that's easy to use. And I think that addresses some of the questions about why we would change.org versus other platforms. The only other thing I'll mention before turning it over to the question that you had, Karen, is that change.org really exists as an advocacy community. We are a website where the only reason people come to our website is to take action on campaigns and petitions. Unlike other sites that are out there that offer other content, whether it's news articles or other social features, when folks come to change.org, they're really interested in taking action. And so we feel that because of that, we have the most activated and passionate users and the most beneficial community of users for organizations to connect with anywhere online. So I think that's also a huge benefit, that we actively seek out ways to attract people based on advocacy and not other types of content. So a small difference, but an important difference when you're thinking about acquiring new supporters over time for email fundraising, for example. So Karen, why don't you answer Lindsay's question about individuals versus organizations being petition starters?
So if you want to use the tool to build your list, then we would suggest that you would start it as an organization so that you can obviously build your email list. Where it would be started as an individual is where you don't want to do that, and it's really powerful to have an individual telling the story, or sometimes where it's best for your organization not to be seen to be the organization that is kind of fronting it, but that there's other community supporters in support of something as well. So that's the kind of thing that we would just talk through with you. Often we would say to an organization, even if you're starting it as an organization, still trying to use people's stories, is a really powerful way to still try and engage people. So, for example, Environment Victoria has one up about trying to replace Hazelwood, and they've got the story of, a mother and why a mother would be concerned about needing to kind of have a clean environment and shift to clean energy.
All right. We have a few more questions that I think we have time here, so I think we're just going to continue on with the questions. Maybe I'll just
we've got a question about the featuring on the front page. We're able to do that. We basically see petitions that are getting a lot of traction that we want people to be able to access easily, because it obviously seems to be popular. If we know something's going to be in the media, then we'll make sure it's on the front page so that if people have clicked through, they can see it easily. And we try and make sure that there's a range of issues on the front page so that when people come in, they may click on one petition, but that they can see that there's a huge range of issues. At the moment, we have an Australia and New Zealand front page, so we have anyone who comes onto the page from Australia and New Zealand goes to one page. It's not localised any more than by country.
And just want to take a brief moment if people do need to leave the webinar. We'll be around for the next 10 or 15 minutes to keep answering questions, but I do want to thank people for joining us. It's been amazing to share all this with you, and hope that it gives you some information about how you can benefit from the Change.org platform. Also want to mention that we have guides available that go into more detail about how online petitions can be effective and how to create them. And to also mention that Karen is available to via email to answer any questions you have going forward, whether that's about petition strategy or asking questions about sponsor campaigns. I know Karen would love to hear from you because we love hearing from people and answering questions. That's why we're here talking to you today. Anything else to say as we on that front before we get back to questions, Karen?
No, just thanks for coming along, and do flip me an email. I'm happy to give you a call and talk it through. So really keen to talk strategy and help you with the tool as well.